Hi, everyone, and welcome to Mondays with Mad. Today we're going to be talking about agriculture, and this is a topic that is personally one of the topics that is near and dear to me, and the reason for that is that I grew up on a farm, and the farm, we lived in Colorado at the time when I was a child, and we had a farm in northeastern Colorado, and we grew primarily alfalfa. We had sheep and chickens and just all the regular farm animals. So what happens when you live on a farm, and I know a lot of you guys, this is CD2, this southern New Mexico, and a lot of people are farmers in our district and ranchers. And when you are a farm child or a ranch child, you get up early and you take care of those animals, and then you go off to school. And then when you get home, you start all over again and do your homework and all of that. So this farm that we had, we lost our farm to eminent domain over water rights, which is why water rights are also, and eminent domain is another one of those topics that is very important to me. And so after we moved away from there, we did eventually end up on a ranch in the southern part of the state of Colorado before my family headed on down here. So when we're talking about agriculture here in New Mexico, this seems like, we're sitting here and we say this is an agricultural state. So we actually import about 95% of our fruits and vegetables. And that's a very large percentage of our products. We need to produce these. We do not need to be importing them. And then we need to export them, whether we're exporting these products through New Mexico or out into our neighboring states and then into Canada, Mexico, and foreign ports. And this is a goal that we need to be focused on here in New Mexico for agriculture. I am a firm believer in the co-op movement. When I grew up, there were co-ops, the big co-op buildings, the grain elevators in various towns. And I know that here again in southern New Mexico, people do see them. And here in my town, Socorro, there's the wool barn that's just north of town. And this is something that is not a stranger to New Mexico, but what we're looking at is because of the rise in agribusiness, small producers, small farms have a harder time making it work. So what we need to do is combine together in our towns and our counties and really rethink that co-op movement so that we can sell our goods or place our goods into the co-op. The co-op then sells it to the larger businesses who are paying premium prices for those larger amounts of product. So when we're thinking then about agriculture here in New Mexico, one of the first things that comes to my mind, being here in the South, is apples. So I drive past Carrizoso so often on our drives as I travel this district. And when we think about Carrizoso, we think about apples and we think about apple cider. Well, we need to increase the number of apple orchards that we have in our state. This is a good state for apples. Through the co-ops, we can produce apple cider, apple sauce, and other products, and rather than just growing the fruit. And this is something that we really need to think of as we're thinking about agriculture here in New Mexico. Rather than simply growing the product here and finding a market for our products, what we need to do is actually invest in the production side, or the producing or packaging or creating a product that can be sold to the stores, directly to the stores, rather than to a larger corporation that will then do those things instead. And then that is the side that gets most of the money. This is going to allow us to increase our share in the domestic production within the United States. For instance, when we're thinking about apples, in the 1970s, New Mexico was the third largest grower of apples in the United States of America. Today, we're only about, we just a sliver of that, about 0.5% of the apple production in the United States is sourced in New Mexico. And we need to change that. There is no reason that that has to happen. Another area we can focus on are vineyards. And again, when you think about vineyards, we might not be thinking about New Mexico, but 200 years ago, we were one of the largest producers of grapes in the nation. When you drive through Socorro, Socorro was one of those locations. We had vineyards throughout. Belen, you can actually, when going through Belen along the highway, you can look over at the vineyards that are still there that need to be, somebody needs to buy them and rehab it. But we see Black Smuggler Winery. There is Jaramillo Vineyards. So it's not something that we aren't seeing here in New Mexico. We can focus on bringing back this industry and the wine industry and the supporting vineyards. A third product that we think about when we think of New Mexico is cheese and dairy. And we see a lot of dairy in southern New Mexico. And when we think about, we might not really think about cheese when we're thinking about New Mexico, because we may be thinking, well, isn't that California? Isn't that Wisconsin? But one of the largest cheese producers in the nation is right here in New Mexico, and that is in Clovis, and that is Southwest Cheese. So Southwest Cheese makes 30 million pounds of cheese. This is an incredible amount of cheese, and they have a $38 million impact in the sales, in the salaries, and in the economic impact on Clovis. And we could see that extended throughout New Mexico and other areas. And cheese and dairy products are something that I think that we could really see expanded. And again, what I'm talking about is the expansion of not just the producing of the raw product, but turning it into the product on the other side that we can then sell outside of the state of New Mexico. And when we're thinking about that, another one of these areas that we're really missing the boat on is pecans. Pecans, we are the largest pecan growers in the world. We supply over 27% of the pecans across the world. But after we produce them, we ship them out, the raw product, to Mexico and to China and to other nations, and that is where they then turn it into the finished product, into the packaged nuts, or whatever way that they are going to package them for sale to the market. And this is a missed opportunity for New Mexico and for New Mexico agriculture. Another area that we can really think about for agriculture is hops. And hops is not something that we can really grow too well in the South. It is something that New Mexico State University is periodically, they have studies, and maybe one day we'll be able to bring hops down here. But hops can be grown in northern New Mexico, and rather than having to send those hops out of New Mexico, we can take advantage of that by investing here in the South in microbreweries, and we tend to buy hops from out of state. We tend to buy them from Oregon, Colorado, Kansas, Idaho. I personally have a friend in Montana who grows hops, and he ships his hops around the country. So what we could do then is by investing in not just the production end, but so rather than just growing, we also produce these items into a value-added product. And in this case, it would be ales and beers and this type of product. And then a final product, a final agricultural product that I think that we really are missing the boat on here in New Mexico, and that is hemp. Industrial hemp is a high value crop. It is not genetically modified for those people who are focused on that. It requires no pesticides. It can be dry land farmed, and it uses less fertilizer than wheat or corn. And both of those are grown here in New Mexico. So this is a product that is something that we could actually be doing. Canada, Great Britain, France, Germany, Romania, Australia, China, all these countries grow hemp. And then guess who imports it? We import it. So we can take advantage of this here in New Mexico by us being the grower of these items. So what can hemp be used for? We use hemp for rope. It can be used for substitute plastic, which is biodegradable. We can use it for biofuels, for paint, for cosmetics. I mean, there are so many, it's almost an unlimited source of products that we can create out of hemp. And again, when we're talking about what we're doing here in New Mexico, we don't want to just be the grower. We want to also have the production end of what we're doing with these products. So one of the things that I want to remind you when we're talking about hemp, we have this attitude that has been given to us here in New Mexico and across the United States that hemp is bad, that hemp is something that we should not even be talking about. The father of our country, George Washington, our first president, that was his product. That was what his agricultural product was. He grew hemp. And if it was good enough for George Washington, I say it's good enough for all of us here in New Mexico. And it's something that we need to begin to talk about investing in. All of these things that we're talking about, that I'm talking about today, all of these things, these items, we can use not only in growing the product, but growing the raw product, but manufacturing the finished product. All of these are going to lead to job growth here in New Mexico. And if we think about I know a lot of you have driven through past Lincoln, the town of Lincoln. And when we drive through there and we say, it's pretty barren. It used to be a farm paradise. And there were peach trees, peach orchards. I mean, it was a wonderful paradise along that river. And this is something that we are lacking here in New Mexico right now, is we are not paying attention to the things that we can go back into some of these areas and begin again to grow products in those areas. It is something we need to do, and it is going to lead to a rise in our tax base. It's going to lead to jobs, and it is going to renew our state. I do have two questions that we're going to talk about today. The first one is from Trinity. She did not tell me what town she was in. She's young, so she didn't want to talk about that. She's still in school. So her question is, I'm in 4-H. How can we make sure that there are jobs for kids who want to stay on their farms? So Trinity, thank you for that question. Trinity wants to be a farmer when she grows up. She does not want to have to leave home. One of the things that we need to think about for our children who want to be farmers is that we do have a premier agricultural university. And Trinity, so think about going to New Mexico State. This is a good place for you to go. And when we're looking at our farmers, it is also true that we have an aging population amongst our farmers. We can see that the average age is about 62 right now for our farmers. We need to focus on vocational education, and this needs to include agriculture right in the schools, and this also includes FFA chapters in the schools. My daughter was in FFA when she was in high school. I was not in FFA, but I was in 4-H throughout my school years. And when I grew up as a young person, I was a 4-H leader, an adult 4-H leader. And it's really an important thing that we focus on agriculture and on the value of agriculture for these children. We need mentoring and we need training. And perhaps we can get some of that mentoring from the elder group of farmers that we have. We also need to emphasize that agriculture is a great vocation, and one that we can focus on and we can grow here in New Mexico. Alfredo, our next question is from Alfredo in Doña Ana, and he asks, what can we do to help increase agriculture in New Mexico? And so one of the things that we can do, we can look, and because I'm looking at a federal position for me, is to look for federal grants and research, especially for hops, hemp, and cannabis here in New Mexico. And like I was saying before, hemp is a dry land crop, so that is a good crop that can be used here in New Mexico. And it's not going to be taking too much away as far as water is concerned. With the legalization of marijuana that we're looking at, we need to be ahead of the curve, and we're watching other states, slowly following, not slowly, but very quickly following suit behind those states who have legalized marijuana. And so we do not want to be the last state to legalize it. We need to do it pretty quickly, but we need to be smart, and we need to work with the medical marijuana community as we move towards legalization. And again, we're talking about what we're doing to increase agriculture. The legalization of marijuana is going to help in this regard too, because then we would have a new crop that we would be able to develop. We also need to focus on veterans programs in agriculture. This is another source for federal money. It will bring federal contracts to New Mexico. The federal government particularly tends to invest in veteran-run businesses, and when those veteran-run businesses are agribusiness or agricultural businesses, then we can be bringing money into our state through that avenue. I see Julie Tobin actually asks, welcome Julie Tobin. She asks, a problem could be water, and you're right. In New Mexico, we do have a problem with water, and we do have to be very, very thoughtful about in what locations these various agricultural products are being considered and where they're going to be grown. As far as water, one of the things that I'm very interested in looking into is the water gathering systems, the water trees that they are using in Africa that collect dew, and then the trees are these tall structures that look like a tree, but they're made out of plastic netting of some fashion. They collect dew, and the dew in the morning is in the cistern. And then that water is then used for agriculture or for other purposes. And I would like to see our state, which is also a desert area, just like these regions in Africa where they're using these water gathering systems. I would like to see some experimentation and some research done on those, and that's something that I would hope that New Mexico State would possibly start thinking about, because that is something that we need to be looking at here in New Mexico. That is the end of the topics that I wanted to discuss for today. I don't have before me the topic for next week. Next week I'm going to try, I'm going to be out of the area on Monday, but I'm going to try to tape Mondays with Mad so that you can still see it. Make sure that if you have any questions and or comments about today's episode or any of the topics that we have talked about, or any topics that you would like us to discuss in the future, please send an email to mondays@mad4nm.com. That's mondays@mad4nm.com. And we are always in search of volunteers, so that you would email contact@mad4nm.com, contact@mad4nm.com, and it's the number 4, mad number 4 at contact@mad4nm.com. And again, anything that you would like to talk about, if you would like to make phone calls for the campaign, if you would like to begin walking through neighborhoods delivering literature, if you would like a a yard sign for your yard, all of those things, go ahead and contact us and we'll make sure you get those. And thank you so much for joining us again today. And I will see you next week on Mondays with Mad. Thank you.